The wrestling world just witnessed history repeat itself in the most devastating way possible. Monday Night Raw, December 4th, 2025, will forever be remembered as the night CM Punk's world completely collapsed. In front of a packed arena that had no idea they were about to witness one of the most controversial moments in modern wrestling history, the World Heavyweight Championship changed hands under circumstances that have ignited a firestorm of controversy, rage, and questions that demand immediate answers. Bron Breakker is your new World Heavyweight Champion, but the celebration is overshadowed by the dark cloud of how that victory was achieved. Because that masked figure, the one we now know as Tyler Black, the estranged half-brother who's been stalking CM Punk for years, struck again with surgical precision that suggests this nightmare is far from over. The match itself started exactly as you'd expect from two of wrestling's most intense competitors. CM Punk, still reeling from the revelations about his half-brother's identity following Dean Ambrose's explosive interview, entered with a focus that bordered on desperation. You could see it in his eyes during his entrance, that thousand-yard stare of someone who knows the walls are closing in but is determined to fight until the very end. Bron Breakker, meanwhile, carried himself with the confidence of a predator who can smell weakness, who knows that his opponent is psychologically compromised and ready to be taken down. The story being told before a single move was executed was clear. This wasn't just about a championship. This was about CM Punk trying to prove he could still function professionally despite his personal life being torn apart in the most public way imaginable. The early sequences were brutal and physical, exactly what fans have come to expect when these two collide. Punk was working stiff, throwing strikes with bad intentions, channeling his frustration and anger into every chop, every kick, every forearm that connected with Breakker's flesh. There was a desperation to his offense that went beyond normal competitive intensity. This was a man trying to prove something, trying to assert control over at least one aspect of his life, when everything else was spiraling into chaos. Breakker absorbed the punishment and responded with his own brand of violence, showcasing the freakish athleticism and raw power that made him such a dangerous competitor in the first place. The crowd was absolutely electric, sensing they were watching something special, something that transcended normal wrestling competition. But everyone should have known. After everything that's happened, after all the revelations about Tyler Black's years of surveillance and planning, after the Survival Series attack that announced his presence to the world, everyone should have known that this match wouldn't be allowed to play out without interference. The question was never if Tyler would strike again, but when and how. Would he wait until the finish? Would he cost Punk the match at a crucial moment? Or would he do something even more dramatic, even more devastating to his half-brother's psyche and career? The answer came approximately 18 minutes into the match, at a moment when CM Punk had seized momentum and looked poised to retain his championship. He had Breakker down, had just delivered a thunderous GTS that should have been the beginning of the end, and was setting up for another big move that would seal the victory. The crowd was on their feet, sensing the climax approaching, when every light in the arena suddenly cut to black. Total darkness. The kind of darkness that makes 20,000 people go silent in collective confusion and anticipation because they just know, that something significant is about to happen. When the lights returned mere seconds later, there he was. The masked figure, dressed in the same black outfit from Survival Series, standing in the ring behind CM Punk. The crowd's reaction was immediate and deafening, a mixture of shock, excitement, and genuine concern because everyone now knows who's under that mask. Everyone understands the depth of the family dysfunction and psychological trauma that's driving these attacks. But CM Punk didn't hear the crowd's warning screams over the arena noise and his own focus on his opponent. He turned around directly into a superkick that connected with his jaw with sickening precision, the kind of impact that you could hear throughout the arena, even over the crowd noise. Punk crumpled like he'd been shot, the championship reign and his consciousness, both evaporating in that single moment. The masked figure, Tyler Black, didn't stop there. As CM Punk lay motionless on the canvas, Tyler stood over him for a long moment, just looking down at his half-brother's prone form. The body language visible even through the mask suggested a complex mixture of emotions, satisfaction at having struck another blow, but also something that might have been sadness or regret, as if Tyler himself wasn't entirely sure how to feel about what he was doing. Then, with deliberate care that was somehow more disturbing than frantic violence would have been, Tyler lifted his mask just enough to reveal his face to CM Punk, though not enough for the cameras to capture a clear shot. He wanted his brother to see him, to know exactly who had just cost him the World Heavyweight Championship, to understand that this wasn't random chaos but calculated family vengeance. What happened next has become the most replayed moment on social media, the image that's now burned into wrestling history alongside the most shocking betrayals and shocking moments the industry has ever produced. Tyler Black placed his hand on CM Punk's chest, not aggressively but almost gently, in a gesture that read as simultaneously threatening and tragically paternal. He leaned down and appeared to say something directly into Punk's ear, words that were picked up by ringside microphones but were too quiet to be clearly understood in the initial broadcast. Lip readers analyzing the footage have suggested Tyler said something along the lines of, "You can't ignore me anymore, brother," or possibly, "This is what you made me do," though there's debate about the exact wording. What's not debatable is the emotional weight of that moment, the awful intimacy of Tyler finally having his half-brother's undivided attention, even if it required violence to achieve it. Then Tyler was gone, disappearing through the crowd with the same efficiency he'd demonstrated at Survival Series, security once again proving completely unable to stop someone who's spent years planning these interventions. By the time officials had helped CM Punk to his feet and restored some semblance of order to the match, the damage was done. Bron Breakker, who'd been watching this family drama unfold from the corner with an expression that suggested even he felt uncomfortable with how he was about to win the championship, covered a barely conscious CM Punk for the 3 count that changed everything. New champion. New era. New nightmare for CM Punk, who now has to deal with losing his championship under circumstances that make it impossible to demand an immediate rematch without first addressing the Tyler Black situation. The aftermath was chaotic and troubling in ways that went beyond typical post-match drama. As Bron Breakker celebrated his championship victory with a mixture of genuine excitement and visible discomfort about the circumstances, CM Punk remained on the canvas, staring at the arena's ceiling with an expression of such profound defeat that it transcended wrestling storylines and entered genuine psychological crisis territory. Medical personnel who responded to check on him reported, through anonymous leaks, that WWE definitely doesn't want circulating, that Punk wasn't responding to questions or commands, that he seemed to be in some kind of shock state that went beyond the physical impact of the superkick. It took nearly 10 minutes before he could be helped to his feet and assisted to the back, and even then, he moved like a man who wasn't entirely present in his own body, like someone whose psychological defenses had finally been overwhelmed by the sustained assault on his carefully constructed life. The immediate question everyone's asking is where WWE management was during all of this. How did Tyler Black gain access to the arena again? How did he evade security once more? How did the production team happen to cut the lights at precisely the right moment to facilitate another attack? The implications are deeply troubling and suggest either massive security failures that should result in someone getting fired, or something potentially worse. The possibility that someone within WWE is actively facilitating Tyler Black's attacks, either because they support his cause or because they recognize the storyline potential and are willing to let real family trauma play out for ratings and pay-per-view buys. WWE's official statement, released approximately 2 hours after Raw went off the air, did little to clarify the situation or reassure anyone about security protocols. The statement read in full, WWE is aware of the incident that occurred during tonight's World Heavyweight Championship match. We are working with local authorities and reviewing our security procedures to ensure the safety of all our performers. We recognize the title change and congratulate Bron Breakker on his victory. We will have more information as the situation develops. The carefully corporate language manages to acknowledge that something happened while revealing absolutely nothing about what WWE plans to do about it, whether they have any idea who's helping Tyler Black gain access, or how they intend to prevent this from happening again. What that statement doesn't address, what nobody in official WWE channels seems willing to discuss publicly, is the elephant in the room, This is no longer just a wrestling angle that can be controlled through booking decisions and scripted segments. This is real family trauma, with a troubled individual who's demonstrated both the capability and willingness to repeatedly breach WWE security to attack his half-brother. The legal liability alone should have WWE's lawyers having panic attacks. What happens if Tyler's next attack results in serious injury? What happens if he escalates beyond superkicks and starts using weapons or inflicting the kind of damage that ends careers? What happens when someone with years of documented grievances and apparent mental health concerns continues to gain access to venues where his target is performing? The wrestling community's reaction has been swift and divided in ways that reveal deep philosophical rifts about how we engage with wrestling in an era where reality and fiction are increasingly difficult to separate. One faction argues that WWE needs to immediately obtain restraining orders against Tyler Black, ban him from all events, increase security to prevent any further attacks, and handle this through legal channels as the serious criminal matter it potentially is. This group points out that assault is assault regardless of family relationships, that CM Punk is a WWE employee who deserves protection from someone who's repeatedly attacked him at work, and that continuing to allow these incidents to occur crosses ethical lines that no amount of storyline potential can justify. The opposing faction, and this group is larger than you might expect, argues that Tyler Black has legitimate grievances that CM Punk refused to address through normal channels for over a decade, that his attacks, while violent, have been calculated to occur in wrestling contexts where physical confrontation is expected and part of the performance, and that preventing him from appearing would be denying him the only platform that's proven effective in forcing his half-brother to acknowledge his existence. This group sees Tyler less as a criminal and more as someone who exhausted all reasonable options before resorting to dramatic public action, someone whose behavior, while extreme, is understandable given the years of being ignored and excluded from his own family. Both perspectives have merit, and both raise uncomfortable questions about responsibility, boundaries, and how we handle situations where real personal trauma collides with the scripted nature of professional wrestling. What makes this particularly complex is that Tyler Black is demonstrably good at wrestling, has legitimate credentials on the independent circuit, and could potentially be a valuable addition to WWE's roster if the circumstances were different. There's a parallel universe where Tyler Black gets signed by WWE based on his talent, gets an opportunity to prove himself on wrestling's biggest stage, and maybe even eventually has a program with his half-brother built around their real family history, but in a controlled, mutually agreed-upon way. Instead, we're in a universe where Tyler forced his way onto WWE's biggest shows through security breaches and attacks, making any potential future working relationship virtually impossible without significant legal and psychological intervention. The impact on Bron Breakker's championship win is another casualty of this situation that isn't getting enough attention. Breakker is a phenomenal athlete and performer who absolutely deserves to be world heavyweight champion based purely on his abilities and the work he's put in to reach this level. But his championship victory will forever be associated with Tyler Black's interference, will always carry the asterisk of not having beaten CM Punk cleanly. The moment that should have been the crowning achievement of Breakker's career to this point is overshadowed by family drama that has nothing to do with him, and reports from backstage suggest he's frustrated and even angry about how his championship win is being received. Instead of celebrating and being interviewed about his victory, he's fielding questions about Tyler Black and whether he feels the win is legitimate. That's not fair to him, but it's the reality of what happens when real-world complications intrude on wrestling storylines. The situation has also created an impossible dilemma for WWE's creative team. Under normal circumstances, when a championship changes hands controversially, you immediately book a rematch where the former champion gets an opportunity to reclaim what they lost. But how do you book CM Punk in any match when there's a credible threat that Tyler Black will interfere again? Do you assign him security escorts for every public appearance? Do you move his matches to the beginning of shows when presumably Tyler wouldn't expect it? Do you just hope that Tyler's made his point and will leave Punk alone going forward? None of these options are satisfactory, and all of them acknowledge that WWE has lost control of their own programming in a fundamental way that undermines the basic premise that outcomes are determined by booking decisions rather than outside interference. There's also the question of what this does to CM Punk's character and credibility as a main event performer. Part of Punk's appeal has always been his aura of authenticity and toughness, his reputation as someone who doesn't back down from anyone or anything. But how do you maintain that reputation when you're being repeatedly victimized by your estranged half-brother in increasingly public ways? How do you cut promos about being the best in the world when you've now lost your championship because of family drama you couldn't control? The character damage here is potentially catastrophic, and it's not damage that can be easily repaired through winning matches or cutting great promos, because the source of the damage exists outside the normal framework of wrestling storytelling. Behind the scenes, according to multiple reports from usually reliable sources, CM Punk is contemplating taking time away from WWE to address his personal situation without the pressure of performing every week while dealing with family trauma. There are discussions happening at the highest levels of WWE management about what accommodations might be necessary, whether Punk needs professional counseling or security services beyond what WWE normally provides, and how to protect their investment in a performer who's brought significant value to the company but is now carrying personal baggage that affects his ability to perform his job safely. These are conversations that nobody involved wants to be having, but Tyler Black's sustained campaign of interference has made them unavoidable. The most troubling revelation to emerge in the hours after Raw came from an unexpected source, Tyler Black himself. In what appears to be his first direct communication with the public since being identified, Tyler posted a video to a newly created social media account that was immediately shared millions of times before it could be taken down. The video shows Tyler, unmasked, speaking directly to the camera with a calmness that's somehow more disturbing than ranting or obvious instability would be. He doesn't apologize for the attacks. He doesn't explain his actions beyond what's already known. Instead, he delivers a message clearly directed at his half-brother, a message that suggests the attacks at Survival Series and Raw were just the beginning of something much more extensive. Phil, I know you're watching this. I know you're finally paying attention after years of pretending I don't exist. Good. That's progress. But here's what you need to understand, brother. This isn't about the championship. This isn't about wrestling. This is about family. This is about the years you had to make this right, to acknowledge me, to do the simplest human thing, and just respond when your half-brother reaches out. You chose silence. You chose to protect your image and your carefully constructed story about overcoming adversity while I was living the same adversity in complete invisibility. So now we do this my way. We do this publicly. We do this where you can't hide behind lawyers and handlers and corporate statements. Every time you step into a ring, I'll be there. Every time you think you're safe, think you've moved past this, I'll remind you. Not because I enjoy it. Not because I'm some villain in your wrestling story. But because I'm your brother, Phil. And brothers don't let brothers forget they exist. The video ends there, leaving everyone who watched it with the chilling realization that Tyler Black isn't planning a specific number of attacks leading to some resolution. He's planning an ongoing campaign of interference that will continue indefinitely until CM Punk does. What exactly? Acknowledges him? Agrees to meet privately? Offers some kind of public apology? The endgame isn't clear, which makes the situation even more terrifying because there's no obvious path to resolution. Tyler has successfully turned CM Punk's professional wrestling career into a hostage situation where the only way out is through addressing family trauma that's been buried for decades, trauma that might not be resolvable even with the best intentions and professional help. The cliffhanger moment, the question that leaves us breathless as this section closes, comes from what wasn't said in Tyler's video message. Throughout his brief statement, Tyler's eyes occasionally flicked to something off-camera, and careful analysis of the video has revealed the reflection in his eyes of what appears to be documents spread across a table. In the final second before the video cuts off, Tyler reaches for those documents, and the camera catches a brief glimpse of what looks like legal paperwork, contracts, or possibly even photographs. What are those documents? Are they the proof that Dean Ambrose mentioned? the evidence that could expose aspects of CM Punk's past or family situation that haven't been made public yet. Is Tyler planning to release information that goes beyond just demanding acknowledgement? Information that could genuinely damage CM Punk's reputation and career in ways that even these attacks haven't? The video ends before we can see more, but that tantalizing glimpse suggests that Tyler Black has leverage beyond his ability to physically interfere in matches, that there are revelations still to come that might make everything we've learned so far look like just the opening chapter of a much longer, much more devastating story. And as WWE tries desperately to figure out how to protect their performers and maintain control of their programming, Tyler Black is somewhere out there, planning his next move in a game where the rules were written years ago by a family that couldn't or wouldn't deal with uncomfortable truths, and now everyone is paying the price for decades of avoidance and silence.